My name is Gabe Howard, and I am super excited to be here with another edition of NAMI Tennessee at Home Facebook Live. It's been a heck of a week. I can't believe it's almost July. I think that's a thing that old people say to explain the passage of time. And since I hit middle age, I've been saying a lot of stuff I used to make fun of my mom for saying. But you can never make fun of me for saying this. Sign up for NAMI Tennessee's email list. It's how you discover all of the cool things that we're doing, from legislative advocacy to free classes to free support groups to all the things online. And of course, you can hear about Facebook Lives such as these, which happen every Monday at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. So I'll leave that on the screen for a minute because you can multitask. You can listen to our voices and jump over and sign up. Don't be shy. Just go over to namitn.org and sign up right now. All right, that's enough of that. I am super excited to introduce our guest. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Hi, yes, thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, we are certainly glad to have you. Can you introduce yourself to our audience and tell them why you're here, who you are, and I can see it right there on the pillow, the book that you wrote.
Oh, it's on the side. Yes. Well, my name's Jamie. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. I have three beautiful daughters. Their ages are 15, 12, and 11, so we're right in that preteen, teen stage. I've always worked with kids my whole life. I've one babysat, of course, always loved kids. Preschool director, I homeschooled, children's ministry director, and of course raising my own kids. So I know the ups and downs and struggles that come with parenting and raising kids. And I'm here because I've become an advocate for children's mental health. Working with kids and raising my own, I know the struggles. I wrote a book about it, Tangled Up. It's about how feelings get twisted and tangled up, and it helps kids, normalizes seeking mental health and professional help for kids. So that's why I'm here, and kind of a short snippet about myself.
Well, we are super glad to have you. And before we go much further, I want to pop on your website. Of course, you can grab the book Tangled Up on Amazon or at jamieedelbrock.com. Exactly where you would expect to find a book, right, Jamie?
Of course.
All right, let's jump into some very, very cool questions. We have a lot of audience submitted questions, but it's not too late. If you haven't posted your questions, please ask short questions right in the comments right now. And as the live goes on, I will get to them, pose them to Jamie, and she will answer as many as she can. It's super easy, right? It's easy.
Very easy.
Super easy. All right, well, let's start off with a big one. One of the questions that people had when we're talking about children's mental health and discussing mental health with children is, listen, children will throw tantrums. There's,
Absolutely.
boys will be boys, girls will be girls, children will be children. How do we know the difference between a mental health issue and, of course, just regular childhood development?
So this is one that's really near and dear to my heart because I always thought that my daughter was just throwing tantrums and being naughty all the time. And it wasn't until a friend kind of woke me up and said, hey, maybe you should go see a therapist or a counselor. And she ended up having severe anxiety. So tantrums and mental illness can look a lot alike. So that's a really, really, really good question. My advice there would be, if it continues and nothing seems to help, let's say you're tried every single discipline tactic, every single parenting tactic, you've gone to school counselors, all of that, and nothing's working, that's kind of a clue. Maybe it's something a little bit bigger. And going to a school counselor or maybe a counselor at your church, anything like that, say, hey, I'm not sure if something's right here. I don't know if this is developmentally where they're supposed to be, or if they're, just throwing a tantrum, or if it's something more. Seek advice, with a school counselor or someone from church first. Have no shame in that. To just, hey, I think something might be off. I'm going to do that. But normally, if it keeps going, doesn't stop, that's kind of a clue.
One of the things that I've noticed in adult mental health is that we believe that in order to seek help, we have to be positive there's something wrong. Now, we don't feel this way in physical health. If we're coughing, if we're not feeling great, we think, I'm not feeling great, I'm going to go see a doctor. We have no idea what's wrong with us except we're not feeling great. In adult mental health, it's like, no, 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 we have to go to the doctor and utilizing our years of medical school, explain to him or her what is wrong with us. I imagine that it's the same with children. You just need to think something is amiss. And then you can see somebody and talk to them about it. And hey, maybe nothing's wrong. Wouldn't that be great? We all love going to the doctor and getting nothing.
I'm better safe than sorry. Absolutely. And that gut instinct that you know as a parent, as a teacher, as a caregiver, like, something's just not right. Trust your gut instinct. You were given it for a reason. And you know your kids better than anyone else. So if there's just that gut instinct, something's not right, get it checked out. There's no, like better safe than sorry. If everything's fine, great. Then help me get through this tantrum. Help me help myself. But if something is wrong, you're going to be so glad that you did that.
Well, that's sort of an interesting. It's sort of an interesting sub point that you bring up. Let's say that your child is throwing a temper tantrum or has a behavior that is giving you pause. As parents, you're like, okay, this isn't typical for my child. I'm not sure how to handle this. You've asked around. It's been going on for a couple of weeks. You go and see a doctor, and the doctor is like, okay, look, your child is throwing a temper tantrum. It's not unreasonable to say, okay, now I know, but here's the thing. I'm struggling with this behavior. I'm glad it's not a mental health issue, but it's still an issue that I'm struggling with. Is that a reasonable follow-up question? Should parents do more of this?
Yes, absolutely. Because when we are struggling and when we're overwhelmed, we need resources. We need help. We need to know how to get through that tantrum. One of the techniques that I still use to this day, I used it when my kids were younger, and now that they're older, is I will tell them that I need a timeout. Like, okay, this isn't anything huge. This isn't like a mental illness, nothing like that. But none of us are acting okay right now. And in order for me to deal with you and handle you and answer you correctly, be able to, have a normal conversation, I need to have a timeout and cool down, and then we can talk. And that's just one of the, tools that you'll use when asking for extra resources. So absolutely, even just normal parenting beyond mental health, yes, absolutely. Ask questions, get resources, 100%.
Do you think that there is this, especially in the internet day and age, there seems to be this push that parents are supposed to know everything, and that they see asking for help as some sort of failure point, or I it's fascinating. We don't expect doctors to know everything. They're allowed to consult with other doctors. I mean, scientists can consult with other scientists, but parents, they must be all knowing at all times, or some sort of failure has come up. Is this compounding the issue of not recognizing mental health issues in children? This idea that maybe it means you did something wrong as a parent?
Absolutely. And especially in today's social media world where everything looks perfect on the screen. Everything looks perfect for Instagram, for Facebook, with all the filters, and my, kids are all lined up perfectly in their nice outfits, and they ate all their vegetables, and they have this beautiful perfect party. This front that everything needs to be perfect is also is a lot of pressure on parents, because if heaven forbid something is wrong with your child, you're not going to want to talk about it, and you're filled with shame because everyone else looks perfect. So you think something's wrong with you and your parenting. And I went through that. When I found out my daughter had anxiety, I was a preschool director. And so I thought that if I went and took her to a counselor and got professional help, it would look bad on my part. Well, that was really selfish thinking of me. And seeing a therapist helped our whole family and her. And I started viewing it as a gift. But it takes a lot. You have to swallow your pride. And yeah, there's a lot of outside pressure of perfectionism, which I think needs to be thrown out the window. Because I've said it 1,000 times, none of us are perfect. There's no perfect parent. out there at all. So yeah, that stigma needs to be thrown out, and we need to start talking about it.
It's interesting to me, as I said, this is the only profession where collaboration seems to be a point of failure. We don't see this anywhere else. I mean, networking is probably the single biggest buzzword in the world right now. There's networking, network,
Right.
learn from your peers. It just everywhere. Okay, what about parents? No, 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 no. No, you better not.
Yeah.
Uh, but the stakes are so high, right? I just, look, I do network to be a better podcaster, but ultimately, if my podcast fails, if my Facebook Live fails, if my hosting career fails, I'll find something else to do. Gabe will be okay. But my podcast, my host, these aren't children.
Right.
Children are impacted greatly. Now, moving on, but staying slightly on the same topic. A lot of the questions are surrounding by, okay, so now you've discovered that there's some sort of mental health issue, or there is a behavioral issue, or there's something going on. The question immediately shifts to, how do we avoid over-medicating children? Obviously the children that need it are helped very much, but there does seem to be a middle group of children that probably don't need it, that have it. And we're not really discussing it because, there's a lot of, it's sort of a topic that's wrought with pitfalls, right? But it probably should be discussed more. What's your take on this, Jamie?
Gosh, it's so easy to say there's a problem, I'm going to fix it with a pill, because it seems like a solution, and it seems like an easy solution. And sometimes that problem can be fixed with medication. But for parents, especially if you feel like, maybe I did something wrong or it's my fault. Oh my gosh, here's a solution. We're going to fix you. It's going to be fine. Of course, that seems so easy, but sometimes the easy way isn't the right way. And so my biggest take is, before looking into medication, talk to your doctor, talk to a trusted therapist or counselor, and see what the best, situation would be for you and your child. Bottom line. Now, I have one daughter who, right now, we just found out she has ADHD. And so, of course, our first instinct was, oh, she needs to be medicated. Well, I'm so glad for the psychologist we have here, because he said, no, we're going to see what's best for her. And that's the type of person that you need to find in your corner, because medication might not be. So, talk to doctors, talk to trusted therapists, friends, anyone who's ever been on any medication. Talk to those people.
I really like what you said about, we need to find the best treatment for our children. There is this idea of, I live with bipolar disorder, and people are constantly asking me, what medications are you on? And I say, why? And they're like, so I can get them. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. Believe me, if it worked that way, it would be so wonderful. This problem would be resolved. Yes. Everybody could just take my medication, but we're so different age-wise. I'm 6'3" and 250-pound male. So the doses and the types of medication that I need, just because of my size, are going to be different than if you're a 125-pound, 5'3" female.
Absolutely, and personalities are different.
Right.
I've also, a tip is to check yourself. Are you giving the medication to your child for you because you think they're going to behave better, act better, or is this really for them? So that's a question to ask yourself. Who am I doing this for?
I think that's a very, very powerful question. Thank you so much. We have a comment from a conversation we were having about the internet. Deborah Wyatt says, I'm not a Pinterest mom. My daughter is feral, I swear, just doing my best to get through each day. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, Deborah is my sister, and yeah, her daughter is definitely feral. There is no doubt in my mind that my niece is wild. It's the only proof I have that my genetics exist in my own family. But that said, as somebody who has watched my niece for 3 or 4 days, it can take a lot out of you. So I do feel for my sister in those moments when you are on Pinterest or you are on Facebook or you are hearing from the parenting groups who we only ever share the good things, right?
Right. It's easy.
What do you do in those moments? Because as Deborah said, just doing my best to get through each day, that's not exactly how we want to live our lives with our children, and it's not how we want to remember their childhood.
Right. Well, first, Deborah, I want to give you a big hug because I've been there. I have been there, and I wish I could hug you right now. There's been days when I've just laid on the floor next to my daughter throwing an absolute fit because I didn't know what to do. And sometimes that was even in the middle of school. Like, I feel you 100%, and you are not alone. In those moments, do what's best for you. Put your oxygen mask on first because you have to have your own mask on before you can help your daughter put on hers. They say that in airplanes, and there's a reason for it. So whatever you need to do, if you need to give yourself a timeout, if you need to, I don't know, you guys can have a popsicle for dinner or order pizza again one more time, or whatever it is. I mean, I don't know you personally. Do what you can do to get through and give yourself grace, because I tell you what, it's not going to last forever. This is a moment in this time, and I know it doesn't help all the time to hear that, but it's so true. It will get better, and do what you need to do to get through to help you before you can help your daughter.
There was a phrase that I read first, in the interest of full disclosure, I do not have children, and I'm very fond of saying that people without children give the best parenting advice.
Of course they do.
It's wild to me. I do not tell children, or I do not tell parents what to, because I don't have any. What am I supposed to say? I don't have kids. It makes me laugh every time I hear it. But all of that said, one of the things that I think about is a quote that I heard a long, long time ago, and it said that no time spent with your child is ever wasted. How do you feel about that statement? Because to me, what I hear is that people are always trying to have quality time, quality time, quality time. And listen, I'm 44 years old, and all of the things that my parents did for it, like take me to the Smithsonian, yeah, I don't remember that. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and my dad getting home late because he was a truck driver and playing tic-tac-toe. This was not a moment that was planned. I remember having popsicles for dinner. I remember these random bits of minutia that my parents probably thought were wasted time. But all of the planned time, it's largely, I mean, I did get to see the Smithsonian,
So that's
but
cool. Yes.
yeah, but they planned that to be quality time, and it's the
No,
accidents that I remember.
of course, your kids want you. Like, that's what they want. They want their parents, and they want their real parents and their raw parents. And the moments, those have been our most favorite moments in our house too. The unexpected. And I remember growing up, what you said about your dad, it reminded me of my dad waking us up one time in the middle of the night to have ice cream by the fireplace. That wasn't planned. I don't know why he did it, but I remember that much more than, our big extravagant trips. So things don't need to be grand. We don't need to be Disneyland parents. Our kids just want us, and they just want, like you said, that quality time, a conversation if you're making dinner, or, hey, watch a TV show with me, or play a game. Like, just be real and be in the moment. And it doesn't, like, it's definitely quality over quantity, but we're with our kids, feels like 24/7. So it all matters, of course, but find the little things, and jump on it. My daughter, at night, when we put her to bed, we have those little lights that go on your fingers. And I don't know, I don't even know why we had them, but we started doing like shows on the ceiling and laughing, and that ended up being our favorite bedtime routine. And it, like you said, it wasn't planned. I thought I was just being stupid, but she loved it, and she still talks about it.
That is fantastic and phenomenal. Thank you so very much. Going back to the questions, so let's talk about your book for a moment. Somebody
Sure.
wrote in and said, what inspired you to write the book? Now, I can see the book there, and it looks so very colorful. I'm going to make you gigantic on the screen so you can
Okay.
show people the book, and
Sure.
tell people what inspired you, and what the goal of the book is.
Okay, so one of my daughters inspired me to write this book. It was actually a love letter to her. Um, she was going through something really tough. I call it the struggle bus phase in our life. Um, my husband was deployed at the time. She was really depressed and having a struggle with school and her friends. I had just quit my job and we had stepped out of the church. So there was a lot going on. And I saw her struggling to the fact where she didn't want to go to school. She didn't want to come out of her room. And I was worried about depression. I'd known from my other daughter that counseling and therapy helps and helped us tremendously. And so I was trying to get her to get excited about therapy and counseling and going, let's just figure out, how to get you there. And she didn't want to go. So this book is actually a letter to her, because the only way I could think to describe her was she's tangled up right now. She's made for so much more, and she's knotted and she's tangled. So, here's some kind of, you can, let's see, where's the camera? There it is. You can see how these are the beautiful threads and how they make up us, who we are. They're so beautiful that sometimes things in life, hardship in life, those beautiful threads of us can get tangled. And we'll flip through real quick here. Here we go. Counselors and therapists can help us get us back to our beautiful threads. And so the whole book is to say that, hey, you are beautiful and you are created for so much. And sometimes we get tangled. And that's okay. And you're not alone. And there's people out there, we actually call them professional detanglers in the book, that will help you get untangled and living your life back to normal. So it's kind of, at a young age, breaks the stigma of going and getting help. And I think that's so important, because if we start that now at a young age, imagine what that could do for the future.
So when we talk about the stigma of mental illness, we always talk about it like from this 10,000 foot vantage point, like, hey, stigma's bad and it prevents people from getting help. But it's very, it's like everybody experiences stigma the same way. It doesn't matter your age, your gender, your race, your socioeconomic status. Stigma is the same for everybody. That's sort of how we discuss it. But we know that that's not true. Stigma is very different culturally. It's very different based on your gender. It's very different based on your age. It's very different based on your personal circumstances. And of course, stigma has levels. There's a very big difference between being stigmatized by a stranger and being stigmatized by your family, and on and on and on and on and on. Moving all of that aside, that general understanding of stigma, let's talk about how children stigmatize themselves because they're responding to their parents. I firmly sort of believe that, depending on the age of a child, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, they probably don't know that they should be ashamed of it until, of course, they start to get that pressure from other people. In your book, you sort of write about this a little bit. And how can parents model the way so that their children are not terrified of these concepts when, again, even the 10,000 foot view of stigma is pretty terrifying, and it can be much worse?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think having a relationship with your child, an open and honest relationship where you can talk about anything, is so important. I've always said relationship over dictatorship, because when you have that relationship, you're able to talk about these hard things. Now, if they hear you saying, you're scared to go to a counselor, or you don't want to, or if they see you trying to be perfect for other people, if they see you being super worried about something, they will too. They'll pick up on it. Kids pick up on your cues. So if you are scared, if you don't want to go, be honest with them and talk about, tell them why, because they'll pick up on that too. And they can tell you, I'm worried too. I'm scared too. We're going to get through this together. But yeah, definitely they'll model what you do. Today, my daughter and I, had to go somewhere, and only one of us could go into the building to run the errand because of COVID restrictions. And I was so worried. She decided to go in. We thought that was the safest decision for her to go into this building and do this errand for us. And I was worried about her. And the whole time when she was done, she did great. She did a great job. She came back out and she said, I did a great job. I was really brave. The only thing I was concerned about was you, Mom, because I knew you were worried. And so I thought, whoa, I should have given her a little bit more confidence, or put on my, hey, you've got this. You're going to do this. You're going to be great. And I think the same applies to mental health and stigma, for sure.
One of the things is calling therapists professional detanglers. You've normalized this idea of going to therapy. I think about again, I use physical health as an example a lot. Nobody likes shots. Nobody likes going to the
Oh,
dentist, and that includes our parents, right?
right.
When I was a kid, my mom and dad weren't walking around saying, "Hey, I hope somebody gives me a shot, yay!" But they modeled this bravery, right? You're going to get a shot today. It's going to be okay. It's going to make you strong. It's going to keep you healthy. The doctor know, and then you're going to get a Band-Aid. And then afterwards, we're going to get, ice cream party, whatever. Just there was always some like strong ritual around it. And of course, we were taught to trust the doctor. Is one of the goals of your book to make sure that children, even at a very young age, are taught that mental health professionals are medical professionals and that they should trust them in much the same way?
Yes, absolutely. Um, yes, and I made it colorful and playful because sometimes kids don't like going to the doctor. Sometimes doctor's office can be, kind of stark, and so I made it this way so they are medical professionals, but it's also a place where, like, if you do play therapy or anything like that, they're going to get to know you on a different level than a physical doctor would. And so, yeah, no, absolutely.
I think that it's interesting that when we talk about medical doctors, we don't include mental health. I people that have watched this show for a long time or followed NAMI, we're always saying we got physical health and we got mental health. Now, where does your brain live in your body?
Right.
That seems pretty
So
physical to
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. That's very physical. It is very physical, and you're right. But they're two different. I mean,
They're
you're
like
gonna.
separated
Yes.
almost in discussion. Is your book seeking to connect those? Does it help children understand that, hey, it's a concern, we have to address it, but here's all the resources we have, and here are all the potential positive outcomes?
Well, absolutely. And to make it as normal as going to the doctor when you're not feeling well, yes, absolutely. It's normalizing that. It is they may not be one and the same, but they are just as equally important. So, and connected, because you would tell your doctor if you're seeing a mental health professional, and you would tell your mental health professional if you're seeing a doctor. And so, it is definitely connected. But I want to normalize, just like going to the doctor when you're sick. You go to the doctor if you need to get untangled.
I love that. Now I have another question for you. What advice would you give to a parent or child who is struggling with feeling tangled up?
Just like what I said to Deborah, first I want to give you a hug, and you need to know you're not alone. You're not alone. The biggest advice I would give is to give yourself grace and to keep going. Remember, there's no perfect parent out there, and to take care of yourself.
I can hear my mom say, well, I was pretty perfect.
My mom would say the same thing.
In fairness, my mother would not. She I could already hear her. I would never say that. Why is he saying that?
My mom would probably say the same thing.
Oh, we have another question that popped in. If the child is the child misbehaving due to a family issue? I'm going to assume. Could the child be misbehaving due to a family issue? Would family therapy better than just assuming that the child has a mental health issue?
You know, possibly, and I think that's something it's individual. It just depends. But family therapy was great for us. And sometimes I didn't think I was part of the problem for a little while. But I remember walking into just a session for just my daughter, and the therapist could see in my face that my stress level and my anxiety was really high. And so she just looked at me and said, "It's going to be okay." And my whole body language changed. But what's so great about family therapy is the way our therapist described it is she knows every single puzzle piece to the puzzle. And she knows how, every single player. And so she can help everybody individually as well as the whole family. So, you know, before assuming that it's a mental health issue, get family therapy. Even if it is a mental health issue, family therapy is still important because that's something that you're working through as a family. Everyone's still there dealing with it together. You're not hiding it from anybody in the family. So, I mean, there's no shame in doing that either. Even if it's just a couple sessions, like, hey, our daughter might have this. Can we talk about it as a family? Yeah.
I think that it's very interesting. You know, children react to things like you said. They take their cues from their parents. So, in the case of a death in the family, the parent may naturally be grief-stricken, devastated, depressed. That's perfectly natural behavior. In the case of a divorce, a parent could be, you know, confused, angry. There's a whole host of of feelings that can go along with that, and on and on and on and on and on. Is it important to understand? I think that sometimes people see family therapy as like the ultimate in failure. The whole family has failed. And once again, I want to, and I think you do too, we want to normalize that, look, doing the best thing for you and your family is the opposite of failure. It's proof of success. Am I
Absolutely.
correct?
You are correct. It's a gift. I've said it time and time again. It is a gift. And I remember walking into the therapy office for the first time feeling guilty and shameful and all of that, but we saw a family walk out that we knew. And so, and we had never talked about it before. And in that moment, it was like, oh, we're not alone and we're not the only one. And the more we talk about this, the more we're going to see that, hey, we're all struggling and we can all give our children gifts. I know if I have grandchildren someday, I don't want them to struggle either. And I want them to know, like, hey, if they are struggling, your parents will know how to get you help. So it's like the domino effect. We start here, it's going to trickle down to generations.
Thank you so much for helping to normalize family therapy. The other thing that I want to touch on real quick is one of the things that you said is it might just be a couple of sessions. I think that sometimes in the public consciousness, people have this idea that once you go to therapy, you now own a therapist, and you have to go forever and ever and ever. Can you talk about what family therapy actually looks like for a family, or typically? And I know it can be different for every family, but it's not what we see on TV with this incredibly dysfunctional family who goes to a therapist 3 times a week for 8 years. That's fiction.
And they're all sitting in chairs or laying on couches and they're all crying and fighting. And
Yeah.
no.
Remember The Simpsons where they were zapping each other and then hitting each other with bats? Yeah, that's it. It's great comedy.
I was going to say, and it may feel like you want to do that sometimes, but that's not what it is. No, in the couple sessions that we had, it was actually really great playing games together that raised questions and things we could talk about. There was the games were the funnest part, or reading stories together, or putting, gosh, what did she do? We put a whole bunch of stuffed animals on the ground, and we each had to pick out different family members that we thought they were like. And I mean, it was a lot of role playing and play therapy and just talking and discussing, playing games, talking about what we like about each other, what we're thankful for, things that just get communication going and flowing. And kids feel safe to talk, parents feel safe to talk. It's an absolutely judgment-free zone. So it's working through the things that like I said before, I didn't realize I was so stressed until you could kind of see it, the different perspective once it's being talked about, or how your child's talking about you in front of the therapist. so I mean, you really, yeah, it's great, but it's not, it's relaxed, it's playful, it's conversation. Some of it can be sad, of course, depending on what's brought up, but it's not scary. It's not a scary, like, someone sitting there with a notepad judging everything you're doing and saying. It's not that.
Obviously there's so many misconceptions about therapy and mental health treatment and mental health conditions, et cetera. One of the first questions that came up very early on is, what's your connection to this book? Did you have mental health issues as a child? Is it just your children? Where, if we may put your family and your experience on display, what was the inspiration?
You know what? I did not struggle as a child, but I had family members and sisters that did. And I saw what it was like kind of from behind the scenes, behind closed doors, to deal with all of that. And saw my parents struggle, saw my siblings struggle. And at times it ripped my heart out, even now. And so I think that's always been on my heart and on my mind. Like, knowing just children's mental health. We've got to do more for the children, and the parents need to be supported more. That's always been on my heart. So it kind of ingrained in me from my childhood. So now with my own kids, seeing them struggle, some of the stuff just brought flashbacks. And so I thought, no, I'm stopping that right now. We are fixing this. I'm not going to be a hurting, struggling family. I want my kids, there's better for my kids and better for me, better for my husband. We can get through this. And so it's straight from my heart.
I love that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Jamie, a question popped up, and I think it's a really good one. How do you suggest to a parent that their child may need mental health help? So I'm assuming we're talking probably a friend, not like your spouse.
Well, and if you get that from a stranger or from someone on the internet, or of course your walls are going to go up, and you don't know me, all that's going to happen. So that's very tricky. You make sure that it's a very close, trusted friend, and that they're going to take in your words with grace and love, because that's a hard thing to hear as a parent. And it came, I was at my breaking point when my friend told me, hey, maybe you should go see someone about this. And because I was at my breaking point, I was like, fine, I have nothing left to do. So be kind, be gracious. Don't come at them with a bunch of facts. Just say, hey, I'm here for you. I'll hold your hand. I'll make the appointment for you. Whatever you want. Let's just figure this out together, because I want what's best for you.
That is probably the best answer to that question I have ever heard in my life. There's always this desire to do all of this internet research and to say, this is why, versus hey, can I help you make an appointment? And let's just ask the doctor, what do we have to lose? Well, maybe if the doctor tells you that I'm wrong, hey, that's cool. What would we kill? A couple of hours? I mean, come on, it's our kids. Thank you so much for saying that. I know that it is very difficult. It's a tough conversation to have with people. I have certainly had that conversation with people, and people have had that conversation with me. It doesn't always go well. But certain things in life they aren't meant to go well. They're just meant to go. And then hopefully when you look back, you're like, okay, that was the start of the right thing.
Well, and even if they don't respond, or they don't take your advice, or they don't, and maybe your advice isn't the right advice. But if you have that conviction and you say, hey, I think my friend's child needs help, or even my friend needs help, saying something is always okay, because if they don't get help, right then, and they don't take your word right then, it does plant a seed, and it does get them to start thinking like, maybe. And so it might not be in that moment that they take your advice, but it probably will help down the road.
It sort of reminds me of my grandfather. My grandmother and grandfather have been married, I think, 68 years now. And I don't think my grandfather has ever had an original thought. But here's the trick. He doesn't know it. My grandmother plants these little seeds like a week before, and then he just shows up one day and he's like, I think we should go out to dinner today. And my grandmother's like, that's a good idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I do think that the slow and steady, it does plant a seed. Hey, maybe you should look into this, and maybe after a temper tantrum, or after an issue, or maybe something that they notice that you're not around for, they think maybe I do need help. And somebody mentioned therapy. They may never remember who it was or why, but it sort of sticks around. Now, I know that we covered this earlier, but I think that it's worth covering again. Somebody asked if you yourself suspect that your child may have a mental health issue. Where do you go? Do you go? And again, I know we covered this. This is just for the listeners just joining. But if you suspect that your child has a mental health issue, what is step one?
Step one, the first thing I did was go to the school counselor, because the big therapy, medical professionals in a big office seemed really scary to me. So I went to school counselors, and they guided me, made me feel a little bit more comfortable. When I got done talking with them and kind of realizing it may be something a little bit more, I researched, I Googled, therapists in, my area. That's honestly what I did. It's that simple. And a lot came up. And it's okay to be picky. Like, you can go through, you can ask your church. I'm sure all churches, all schools have a list of, therapies and or counselors, offices, stuff like that. Go through them. Be picky. You can interview your therapist. You can interview your counselor. The one we decided to go to felt so comfortable for all of us. So that was, it was like a light shining from heaven. This is great. But the first thing that I did, school counselor, and then bigger counselor, because that's what I felt comfortable in. But picking up that phone is scary. That is scary. I was at, so anyone who's going through this right now who is scared to pick up that phone and just make a call and say, I want to make an appointment, you're not alone. I was on the side of the road bawling my eyes out because I was at a breaking point and I needed help. And then I got frustrated when I said, I need help with my daughter. Help me. Like, I want to bring her in right now. They said, well, it's going to be a while and we have to get your insurance and fill out all the paperwork. We have all these questions to ask. And then I felt just completely helpless because waiting a week or two felt like an eternity when I finally finally got there to get help. So when you do make that call, like, first, don't wait till it's too late. If you wait, it's okay. You're still going to be okay. But if you're thinking about it, just do it. And it might be scary. You're not alone. I promise you that.
Oh, thank you so much, Jamie, for saying that. I do want to reiterate, in the age of Facebook and social media and television shows, all of the best parts of parenting are constantly splashed across the screen. And not only that, but the best part of having children is constantly splashed upon. They're, Daddy, I love you, Mommy, you're my hero. The pretty dresses, the little, I mean, just the babies are adorable. What we don't see on social media is, parents who haven't slept in 3 days because, the little one isn't sleeping through the night right now, or has a cold, etc. And nobody publishes their worst moments. And I shouldn't say nobody, there are some, but predominantly what you see are these beautiful images of family life. And you don't see the less than beautiful images of family life. Do you think that your book helps sort of grab a hold of that notion and tell you, hey, look, this stuff is out there, here's what we can do about it? That stuff's pretty, but listen, for every beautiful sunset, there's also like a really nasty thunderstorm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I've always thought I don't have a story to tell. I don't have much to tell. Yes, I do. It's a story of, hey, I know we're not all okay, and that's okay. You're not alone. So yes, it absolutely is taking that. I often think of it. I think I saw a picture where you see this perfectly displayed family and kids are smiling, and the flowers, everything's just perfect. And then the next picture was it completely zoomed out, and it was everything shoved to the side, a complete mess. Maybe animals over there and another kid throwing a fit, and all we see in people's lives, especially on social media, is just that little part of the picture. We don't see the big part. And most of the time, the big part is, either mental health issues or family problems or just struggles in life, just being tangled up. We don't talk about the tangles. We talk about the threads that flow nicely. So we need to zoom out. We all need to zoom out a little bit and to see the tangles, because we all have them.
Jamie, thank you so much. Now, what messages do you want readers to walk away with when they read your book?
Hope that it gets better and that you're not alone. It will get better. No matter what the struggle is, it will get better. And I've talked about this before with someone else, and I think it's important to talk about. There are ways to untangle. Like, for me, it's going on walks or exercising or time with my friends or reading a book. And everyone has their own ways to untangle if they've had a very tangled up day or if they're feeling entangled. The professional detanglers, though, are the medical health professionals and the mental health professionals. So if you are feeling tangled up, there is something you can do, even you're not seeing a mental health professional right now. Figure out what that is. Just like I told Deborah earlier, like figure out what's going to help you get through the day and do it. If that's a phone call to a friend, if that's, hey, I needed to call a babysitter and get out of here. If that's, guess what? Early bedtime, 4 p.m. Okay. Like whatever it is, there's no rules. Just do it. I think my daughters are probably tired of chicken nuggets and frozen pizza for a while, but I didn't care. It's what got us through. So to just take that shame, know you're not alone, and it's gonna get better.
There's so many things that we've talked about over the past 45 minutes, and as we're winding down the show, I just sort of want to hit a few of them and just make sure we have time to really expand on them. One of them seems to be that no family is perfect. Everybody has something, and it's not just okay to seek help. It's actually like that's the hero moment, right?
Yes,
like
it is. It absolutely is.
It's an analogy that I often heard is, could you imagine if your house caught on fire and you're like, no, I can handle it. I'm not going to call a professional. I'm not going to do it. I'm the parent. I will save everything. Like people would look at you like you were a fool. Yet we are doing this with mental health issues. But the specific thing that I want to talk to you about is, mental health issues come in all shapes and sizes, right? There's the very, very severe all the way to the situational. How does what's your philosophy on that? Because we don't want families to think that every single mental health issue is the same. It's very dependent on the child's age, etc. So let's talk about that for a moment.
Well, there's so many. You could have anxiety, you could have, I know, I'm like,
I know, it's like, we always say children's mental health as if it's all one thing, which, I understand it's all in that one big basket, but that's a giant basket.
And that's why we can't handle it by ourselves, because there's no way, even though we know our children the best, there's no way we are professionals on every single mental health problem out there. There's no way. I can't even list all of the different problems out there, and it can be caused from, tons of different reasons. There's no way one person could know all of that. That's why there are professionals. That's why you need to go. I love that fire analogy.
I think that we all want to be somebody's hero. Again, full disclosure, I do not have children, but I want my niece to think I'm perfect. I want all of my nieces and nephews to think I'm perfect. I want my wife to think I'm perfect, but I think we set ourselves up for failure if we don't ask for help. And I love the way that your book frames this idea that, look, we're all connected, and sometimes there's a tangle, and we just get some help getting it untangled. We talk about it, we work it out, here's the levels, and then we move forward. Do you find that saying we're just a little tangled and we need detangled brings people closer to the subject matter than saying we all just have a little mental illness and sometimes we need help, or everybody has mental health issues and sometimes we need help? Is this slight adjustment of wording making it more palatable for folks?
Well, yeah, it's easier. And it's so simple in my book. I've heard adults say, oh, it's so easy when it's explained that way, because you're not saying scary words, but we're saying what it is, and that's what it is. And sometimes those tangles can be a lot longer and a lot bigger, and some can be tiny. I think that's all the different mental health issues that we've talked about, or that you're talking about there. But absolutely, this is helping people realize that it's okay. It normalizes it. It makes it, I don't want to say, it does make it pretty. It makes it fun in a way, but it makes it something that's like, I can do that. Makes it tangible. I can do that. It's not going to be that bad, and I'm going to feel better.
I think this is fantastic. When I was a kid, in elementary school, like 35 years ago, we had the model. It was a puzzle, but it was all the human organs, right? And they were all brightly colored, and you had a body essentially, and you put all the organs together, and of course when you put them all together, the body worked. Now on one hand, you can say, well, how seriously are we taking it? I mean, we're giving 9-year-olds human hearts and letting them remove them from bodies like it's nothing, but it helped children understand what's on the inside. It helps us understand how these things fit together. And I know that there is sometimes discussion about, well, are we taking this seriously when we don't use the words? I do think the words are very vital and very important, but much like the very colorful model of a person's anatomy that we could all run around and, make inappropriate jokes with, just, I have the intestines, you know what that means? But notice I still know what an intestines is. I mean,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
and what it does.
You have to get them interested in it first. If it's not interesting and if it's scary, you're not going to do that. If that puzzle was gross or scary or not interesting, you would have pushed it aside, right?
Very
so
true.
This book is like, hey, this is going to get them in the door, and then you can start using the words and normalizing everything else. But that's also left up to the professional detanglers. But this is just getting them in the door. It's starting that conversation.
Professional detanglers come off very well in your book. I know that we're almost out of time, and I got a couple of announcements before we get out of here. But this is a question that I came up with all by myself. I just want to know who did the artwork, because it's beautiful.
So his name is Nadam, and he works with our publisher. And isn't it great? It's one of my
I mean, look at that.
My daughters actually helped me pick out the illustrator. We went through a lot, and he won. And I might actually have a second book coming out later this year, and we're using the same illustrator.
Very nice. What's the second book about? Give us a sneak preview of that.
It's called Be the Sparkle, and it talks about the fear that kids face. Just if you turn on the news or see a flash on social media, the world is scary right now. So it talks about what you can do and how helping others is actually a resiliency tool. So to you yourself as a sparkle, and to give your sparkle to somebody else will make the world a lot brighter. And there's something that you can do when the world is scary.
Oh, that is super awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie. I will pop up your website one more time. Please check her out at jamieedelbrock.com. Of course, you can get the book Tangled Up on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. Jamie, thank you so much for being here. Oh, it was my absolute pleasure. All right, everybody, I have a couple announcements before we get going. First, NAMI Tennessee offers the NAMI Basics class absolutely free of charge. Do you have a child experiencing emotional or behavioral problems? Please email us at info@namitn.org or call the number on your screen. It's an absolutely free class. Highly recommend it. It's super cool. And of course, for everybody who watches this show week after week, join the mailing list. If like 100 more people sign up, I get a toaster. Okay, I don't actually get a toaster. I feel like maybe that would help people sign up. It's a very cool email list. It talks about legislative advocacy, all the stuff that's going on at NAMI Tennessee, all of the free stuff we offer, including classes like NAMI Basics, and of course, the NAMI Facebook Live series. So please, it's right there. Just go to namitn.org and sign right up. We do these every Monday at 2 Central, 3 Eastern, and we will see you next week.